Going on a trip and want to know how to practice intuitive eating? Well, today I'm going to tell you exactly that, how to travel and practice intuitive eating. So earlier this week, I went to Los Angeles. I'm from Michigan, so I'm from the Mitten. And I went to Los Angeles to meet up with some other dietitian bosses that I know and network with them. So I did that, and let me tell you, 4 years ago, that would have put me in a tailspin. I would have been anxious. I mean, who would have known what food I was gonna eat, you know, what restaurants we would go to, if I would get hungry. The possibilities would have just made my mind spin. I wouldn't have been in control. So if you're right there right now where traveling would first of all just make you anxious in the first place, be sure to download my free ultimate 5-step guide to food freedom. That will help you work on your relationship with food so you can feel more comfortable traveling. So I will link to that below so you can go ahead and snag that first and foremost. So after really improving my relationship with food, this trip was fun. I enjoyed it. It was fabulous. I was able to go out to eat and not have to, be anxious about it. It was an amazing experience. But there are a few tips I do have for you to travel and practice intuitive eating. So let's dive into those. So the first tip that I have for you is to eat before you go. Okay, guys, this one's a no-brainer. Do not try to save calories beforehand and skip meals or cut back on carbs or whatever it might be. Eat your normal meals, eat your normal snacks, set yourself up for success versus setting yourself up to be hangry later on. Let's be real, okay? So the first tip is to just eat normally. Don't set yourself up to be hangry and ravenous later on, okay? It's not good for anyone because you're going to be cranky and you're probably going to be more drawn to those quote unquote bad foods. We know there's no bad food, and you're likely to overeat those when you do get them. So just avoid it all and just let yourself eat normally, okay? That's tip one. Tip number 2 for traveling and practicing intuitive eating is to pack snacks, guys, okay? I know I sound like a kindergarten teacher. Okay, do we all have our snack bags? But seriously, I actually have a snack bag. So part of intuitive eating is learning to honor your hunger and fullness, right? So in order to do that, it's important to actually have food to do that. And sometimes when you're stranded up in the middle of the sky, you might not have snacks readily available. So that's why you want to make sure that you pack some. So I packed some of these Health Warrior Chia bars. They fit perfectly in my backpack, in my purse when we went out places. So always have snacks to prevent that hunger. I'm always talking with my clients about preventing extremes, okay? You want to prevent extreme hunger and extreme fullness because none of those are comfortable, right? So pack snacks so that when you do feel those hunger cues, you're able to honor them and give your body some nourishment and prevent you from getting too hungry, which likely leads to overeating, choosing foods that don't make you feel fabulous. So have some snacks at the ready, guys. This one, dark chocolate cherry, is amazing. And you guys know I'm a fan of the peanut butter. This one's chocolate peanut butter. So I will link to those below as well. They fit perfectly in my backpack that I traveled with, or a purse, or even a clutch, to be honest. So that is the second tip for practicing intuitive eating. The third tip for practicing intuitive eating while traveling is use the hunger scale. Guys, I swear by the hunger scale. I use it to this day. I use it with my clients. It's something that I swear by. So I linked to the ebook that I have my hunger scale in that I've created and that I use with my clients. I'll link to that below too so that you can have access to that. But basically what the hunger scale is, it shows you how to prevent those extremes. So you understand what getting too hungry feels like and what getting too full feels like, and you find those happy mediums. So for instance, when I was in Los Angeles this past week, we went out to dinner, okay? It was a cute little spot and we were ordering food. So I ordered some scallops and these really great crispy Brussels sprouts, and they came out and the Brussels sprouts were literally like the size of an entire dinner plate. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much. But I had no anxiety. I had no pressure to eat the whole thing because I simply listened to my body and I checked in with myself. And I do that 3 times when I'm out to eat, or if you're in a situation where you're anxious or stressed or uncomfortable. The hunger scale and these, what I call mid-meal check-ins, are going to be your best friend. So I'll link to a blog post below too about where you can learn more on the mid-meal check-ins, but basically you check in with the hunger scale 3 times, before, in the middle, and after a meal, so that you can prevent getting to the point of being too full, okay? You're kind of monitoring your hunger and fullness. And when you start to do these mid-meal check-ins at first, it does take a little bit more conscious thought to do them. So you have to remind yourself, okay, Colleen, I have to, make sure that I take a second, take a sip of water, and I allow myself to actually evaluate where I'm at on the hunger scale, right? So it's a little more of that conscious effort, but after you do this for a long time, you start to understand what that feels like. So I was out to dinner in Los Angeles and I didn't have to tell myself, okay, stop and evaluate where you are on the hunger scale. I could kind of feel it. So as I got to the middle of the meal, I was like, okay, I can feel my fullness changing. And as the meal progressed, I could feel it changing even more. So those mid-meal check-ins and evaluating where you're at on the hunger scale really starts to become second nature, and it's not as much of a conscious thought. So I would say go ahead, snag that hunger scale that I use and start practicing it so that you start to get to know what those hunger and fullness feel like. So to recap, my 3 tips for traveling and practicing intuitive eating are to firstly eat normally, guys. Okay, make sure you're not skipping any meals or doing anything crazy like that. Number 2, to pack those snacks, okay? So make sure that you have food available so that you can prevent those extremes, right? We don't want to get too hangry because that's not good for anybody. And then the 3rd tip is to use the hunger scale. So that is really the simple 3 tips that I put into practice when I traveled to Los Angeles this past week. So take those 3 tidbits and use them on your next trip. This could be the next trip across the country like I did. I'm from Michigan. Or it could be a simple car trip or anything, any sort of trip, okay? Anytime you're out, you're not at home, or when you maybe don't have control over when you're gonna eat, what you're going to eat, use those 3 tips to kind of help you feel a little bit more comfortable and be able to actually enjoy traveling again. Like I said, 4 years ago, I would have been such an anxious mess over this trip, but I was actually able to enjoy it. I got to hang out with some amazing other dietitian bosses and network with them, and it was such an amazing experience. So I hope you guys thought those 3 tips were helpful, and I hope that they allow you to actually start to enjoy this life that you're worthy of without having to stress about food so much, because that is the goal of living a no food rules lifestyle, guys, is that you can enjoy your entire life and not be stressed about food. Pretty amazing, right? All right, guys, that's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed those tips, and I'll see you next week.